Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to learn about Nullish Coalescing in JavaScript with a few examples. Let's get into it. So the Nullish Coalescing operator, this double question mark, is a logical operator that returns the right-hand operand when the left-hand side is either null or undefined. Otherwise, the left-hand operand is returned. So what the heck does that mean? Well, using these comments here just as a guide, in this example, when the left-hand side is undefined and the right-hand side is this default string, then we would get the default string. Similarly with null, when the left-hand side is null, we wind up with the default string. In any other case, even with falsy values such as 0, empty string, and false, we wind up with the left-hand side because none of these values are null or undefined. To see this in code, I'm just going to copy-paste a snippet in here. And what we have here is a left-hand variable, right-hand, which is set to this default string. And then we're just console logging the value of the left-hand variable here, and then console logging the result of using the Nullish Coalescing operator here. And in this case, when we just say let left-hand, this left-hand variable is set to undefined. And we can see that in this case here and in the log statement down here. And in this log statement, when left-hand is undefined, using the Nullish Coalescing operator, the result is the value on the right-hand side, because left-hand is undefined in this case. Now if we change this to null, we can see that left-hand is null, and we still wind up with the default value, because with the Nullish Coalescing operator, remember that the left-hand side, when undefined or null, will not be returned. Instead, the right-hand side will be returned. So going through the rest of these here, if we set it to 0, we can see left-hand side is 0, and the result of using the Nullish Coalescing operator is 0, because left-hand is defined, and it's not null either. And really quick, we can run through these other two examples. And in this case, we see the result here is empty string. And if we pass explicitly false, then we see the result is false. Maybe this seems like magic to you, or maybe it doesn't. But to provide an example of exactly what this Nullish Coalescing operator is doing, we can leverage existing logical operators that we already know about. So I'll add another console statement down here, and I'll just paste this snippet in. And what we've got here is we're checking if left-hand is not null and left-hand is not undefined, then using this ternary, return left-hand, otherwise return right-hand. So going back through this list here, we'll see that the result of this line here and the use of the Nullish Coalescing operator are the same. They both get default. Now if we change this to null, they both get default again. And then as we go through the rest of the values, you'll notice that each time they're still the same. So under the hood, this Nullish Coalescing operator really would look like this. One important thing to note about the Nullish Coalescing operator is that it can't be combined with logical or and operators. So if I try to do, actually let me add another variable up here to help us out a little bit. We'll just call that left-hand 2, and we'll set this back to undefined. So if I try to combine the logical OR operator, this one here, with the Nullish Coalescing operator, I wind up with a syntax error. It says OR and Nullish Coalescing operations cannot be mixed without parentheses. So to fix that, we can just add parentheses around this operation here. And to illustrate this in use, we can add a 0 value here, and when this expression is evaluated, left-hand is undefined, so using this OR operator will result in the value 0 from left-hand 2. And because 0 is defined, in other words, it's not undefined and not null, this right-hand side is not returned. Alright, so now that we know how this operator works, I'd like to show an example using optional chaining. And optional chaining and the Nullish Coalescing operator actually work very well together. If you haven't seen my previous video on optional chaining, I'll leave a link in the top of the video. So I'll just go ahead and comment this out. And I'll add a function called logYear. And this function is going to accept a date object. And what we want to do is console log what the year is. So the year is, and I'm going to add a variable for this. So we'll just get the current timestamp. And if the user passes a date in, then we can say date, and using optional chaining here, get full year. And using this optional chaining operator, this just says, if this value is defined, then try and evaluate this expression. If it's not defined, then just return undefined. And you can see how this might be useful with the Nullish Coalescing operator, because if this is not defined, then we'll wind up with the right-hand side. So we can say now dot get full year, and if we call this, if we call it with no arguments, we see the year is 2021. And in this case, date is undefined, so that leverages the optional chain here, and the evaluation bails out early because date is undefined. And because the left-hand side here winds up undefined, the result is the right-hand side using this Nullish Coalescing operator. Now if we pass a date in here and say maybe January 1st, we'll just say 2000, Y2K. Now in this case we see the year is 2000, and that's because we did pass in a date object, so this is defined, and thus get full year actually returns a non-undefined and non-null value. So the resultant value of this expression with the Nullish Coalescing operator is the left-hand side, which is 2000. Okay, one final example, and this one will illustrate how the Nullish Coalescing operator differs from the logical OR operator. So for this example, I just have a simple HTML page with one div with the ID of box and just some baseline styles here, and you can see that box over on this side in the browser. So coming over into the JavaScript file, we've grabbed the box, and we'll just start with a function set box top, and this function will accept a top property, and we're just going to set the top property on the box style. And we'll start off with the logical OR operator. So maybe we'll say if the user passes a top value in, then we'll set the box's top to that value. Otherwise, we'll set it to 25. Now, if we call this with 50 and save that, we can see the box moved. And 100, the box moved down again, so that's clearly working. And what happens if we don't pass anything? Okay, so that's clearly down 25 pixels, and we can inspect that right here, and that says top 25 pixels, so we are indeed getting our default value of 25 here. What happens if I want the box's top property to be 0? So if I do 0 and save that, now we see nothing changed. Interesting. So this is a very good use case for the Nullish Coalescing operator, because the logical OR operator will evaluate both sides, and if the left-hand side is any falsy value, that's undefined, null, empty string, 0, explicitly false, then it will result in the right-hand side. Now if we change this to the double question mark, the Nullish Coalescing operator, and save this, Now we see the box moves to the top position of 0. And that's because when we pass in 0, this value is not undefined and it's not null. So using the nullish coalescing operator will result in the left-hand side being returned. Very cool. So while the nullish coalescing operator can be super useful, there is actually one caveat to keep in mind, and that is that it's relatively new. So I'm just going to open can I use and searching for the double question mark nullish coalescing operator. So you can see that it was only added to Chrome as of Chrome 85, and that was released in August 24th, 2020. That's pretty new. So if you unfortunately need to target any of these older browsers up to July 13th, 2020 for Chrome, for example, which seems highly plausible, or if you're unfortunate enough to still have to support Internet Explorer for your app, you're going to have to polyfill the nullish coalescing operator to use it. Otherwise, going back to this previous example, you can use this syntax with the existing operators that we already know about, this logical and then the ternary. Alright everyone, that's it for this video. If you learned something or just enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you're interested in more JavaScript videos like this one, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. If you have questions about nullish coalescing or have a request for a particular video, do leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.